Okay. Welcome, everyone. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Public Safety Committee for Tuesday, June 25th, 2024. And first order of business is public comment. Is there anybody who wishes to address the committee? I see nobody in the room. Is there anybody online? Oh, and I see Mike Sigler has just joined us. Thank you, Mike. Are there any changes to the agenda? Seeing none, we have minutes from May 28th, 2024. Could I get a motion on the minutes? You can still move them. Okay, Shauna moves. Lee seconds. Thank you. Any questions or comments on the minutes? All right, are we ready to vote? All those in favor? That's unanimous. Great. Chair's report. And there was something I wanted to advise you of. I'm trying to remember what it was, but if it comes to me, we're gonna reorder the agenda a little bit to allow me to tell you about that. But why don't we move directly to county administration? Lisa, welcome. And I know you have things to tell us about today.
Sure do. Thanks, Rich. First item on the agenda is a report out on the progress of reimagining public safety and the various projects. We have Sheriff Osborne, Under Sheriff Olin, and as well as Mona Smiley, the director of the Community Justice Center, here with us. So I'm going to be providing the overview, and the sheriff and Mona are here to provide any details or answer follow-up questions. And I have a PowerPoint, so if you give me just a minute.
Yeah, please.
I'm going to work on that.
And Mona, welcome. Yeah. The sheriff, welcome. Yeah. And while we're waiting, Lisa, thank you for the work on this report. This is, I know it wasn't just you, but somebody did a tremendous amount, or people, to put this together.
Many hands. So, okay. I got the slideshow going. So, yeah, so as you mentioned, Rich, thank you. In the packet is a detailed interim report that includes the budgeted and actual expenditures under each project and the goals and outcomes aligning with the original resolution that was passed with the 17 projects. And just as a reminder to take us back to the origins of that original resolution, those 17 recommendations were made to identify and address disproportionate contact and negative outcomes between law enforcement and people of color in our community. So rather than read the report to you, we've created a PowerPoint that includes the high-level successes, challenges, and emerging opportunities that have come out of these 17 projects. Just to put it out there and state up front, and many are aware, we had some challenges as we went along. Challenges with law enforcement engagement and participation in the process with the CJC. At various stages in the process, tensions arose, which caused the Sheriff's Office to disengage. The process didn't go according to plan, but despite this, and as you'll see in the report and in the presentation, the parties demonstrated a commitment to the work, and the work is getting done and bearing some fruit. So, and I also want to state that the investment of funds from both the county and the city enabled this work to take place, and there are a number of successful areas and promising practices to build on. And I just thought of one other thing that I forgot to mention, the linkage between this presentation right now and what we're doing in our strategic plan. This is one thing that we said that we would be committing to this year in our strategic plan, was reporting out on the outcomes of this project and determining next steps. So I just wanted to make that linkage. And lastly, before moving on from this slide is one of several panels of the beautiful mural that now exists on the side of the Center for History and Culture on the Commons. And the mural is larger than this, but this is one of many panels. I'll speak more to the mural in just a minute. So starting with the successes, and in the realm of community healing, the Community Justice Center, CJC, convened a healing event open to the public in March of 2023 with over 70 attendees. The event featured a nationally recognized expert on trauma and healing who engaged in dialogue on tools to facilitate relationship development between the community and law enforcement. Out of that event, the CJC hosted a Train the Trainer event resulting in 4 trained local facilitators and a structure for ongoing conversations between community members and law enforcement. 2 community conversations have taken place to date involving IPD, the district attorney, trained facilitators, and community members. Feedback from participants has been very positive, with 4 additional community dialogues scheduled for the remainder of 2024. Then on to the mural project. The CJC engaged with young people through the Southside Community Center's Black Girl Alchemist project, who came up with the words to describe what community healing meant to them. They then worked with local artists to translate those words to images, which resulted in a mural depicting community healing. The unveiling of that mural was a couple of weekends ago on the Commons, and that project was made possible through collaboration with Southside, the History Center, local artists, and the Downtown Ithaca Alliance. Next, the data dashboards. These dashboards arose out of a call for greater transparency overall, and specifically public disclosure of DA and assigned counsel office statistics. This is another project area that didn't go exactly according to plan, where the original concept differed from the outcome. The original idea was for one comprehensive dashboard, but IPD quickly published a dashboard with others soon to follow. Again, it wasn't what was originally envisioned, but the end result is greater transparency and the availability of data to the public. In the case of the county's data, there is a commitment to publish some specific data sets by resolution and to include contextualization of the data, and the CJC's dashboard links to the 3 other dashboards. Also among the successes of reimagining are the care teams now launched in both the county and the city. The Sheriff's Office worked with Whole Health to partner a highly experienced deputy with a mental health clinician. A second care team was developed and implemented using a rotation of IPD officers and a second Whole Health clinician to serve the city of Ithaca. By all accounts, these teams have been highly successful and utilized to de-escalate situations and link people with needed care. A dashboard containing data related to the work of the care team is on the sheriff's website, available to the public. The last time I checked, which was maybe last week, the care team had responded to 114 incidents throughout the county. That's maybe more by now. The Sheriff's Office also recommended and created a civilian response unit staffed by sheriff's clerks to handle routine non-emergency calls that historically would have been handled by an armed deputy. There's also a dashboard related to the work of this unit, and that's on the sheriff's website. And in 2023, the full year of the program, 243 incidents were assigned, and 86% were closed without additional assistance from armed deputies. The CJC, continuing with the successes, has implemented 5 community resource hubs throughout Tompkins County, offering open hours for community members. This provides an opportunity for community members to access assistance and resources upstream of the criminal justice system. CJC staff provide referrals and offer free internet, computer, and printing resources during scheduled office hours in Groton, Enfield, Lansing, Slaterville, and on West Hill in the city. The report before you also details an officer wellness survey that was conducted, a contracted recruitment and retention strategy for use by both the city and the county, an in-house recruitment video produced for the sheriff's office, and peer training received by the Department of Emergency Response to support wellness. Some of these challenges I already mentioned at the beginning. The CJC and related initiatives got off to a slow start in year one, which was 2022, largely because the contract between the City of Ithaca and Tompkins County to jointly provide funding wasn't ratified until August of that year, and the CJC's work plans for 2022 were passed by the city in December of that same year. So that effectively stalled the efforts in 2022 because we weren't clear on the extent of project funding that first year. So that affected that spending in year one, and many of those projects weren't able to get off the ground that year. Also, the CJC was conceived of as a somewhat independent entity separate from the county and city law enforcement while attempting to effect change. That proved difficult to navigate as some lines of authority and responsibility were challenging to navigate, different bureaucratic structures and lines of authority between that were in place in the city and separately in the county. And I'd already mentioned challenges around law enforcement engagement. And this last slide speaks to emerging opportunities based on some of the projects and areas where we've achieved some traction. We've seen many people get connected to resources through the community resource hubs with other county departments partnering with the CJC to attend and utilize those office hours and infrastructure to provide outreach. Other community agencies, such as TCAT, have requested to partner as well. The facilitated community conversations between law enforcement and community members have also received very positive feedback, again, with 4 more planned for this year and requests for larger events. There's a desire to maintain and add to the various data dashboards. The care teams have raised the interests of other funders, namely the Office of Mental Health, to replicate and expand here in Tompkins County and elsewhere in the state. And I believe Frank Krupa has an item on today's agenda to discuss further under whole health. And the Civilian Response Unit shows promise for handling non-emergency calls and diverting the need for assistance from armed deputies. So, that concludes the status update, and at this point in the year, we're looking at how to embed the successful work of this initiative into the work of the county and the city. The city's making those same considerations as we plan for 2025 budgets. So I'm happy to answer any questions and appreciate that the sheriff and undersheriff and Mona are here as well to help field questions, and I can stop the sharing.
Okay. I'd look for questions from committee members. Lee.
What, with the care team, what are the hours of operation?
Right now, Lee, they're Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m.
And the proposal with the OMH would be to expand the hours, is that correct?
That has been talked about, Rich. We do have some concerns finding a mental health clinician willing to work evenings, but ideally that's what we'd like to see, because our call activity certainly increases in the evening and on weekends.
Okay.
And same question for the civilian response.
Yeah, they're 8 to 4. Yeah, Monday through Friday, 8 to 4. We just recently hired our second sheriff clerk. We've had one consistently since the project has started. The second position, we've had some turnover in, but we just hired one, I don't know, maybe a month ago. So we may be pushing her into the evening.
She'll be working 10 a.m. to 6 p.m.
When did those 2 programs get off the ground? Mid-year last year?
Sheriff Clerks has been in the works longer,
The longest.
I think, so that's been probably 2.5 years. Yeah, and the care team, that's been going since August of last year. We almost have a good full year.
Okay. Shauna?
Thank you, Lisa, for the presentation. I think it was a good presentation and encapsulated what we've been doing over the past few years. I guess the real question is, moving forward, what is that going to look like? And what will the process look like for us to figure out what services we want to provide?
I agree. Do we want to talk about the report first? Because I agree, we're going to spend a lot of time talking about that, but let's have at it. Okay, go ahead.
So I think this is a step in the process. I think identifying the projects that we're able to get off the ground, and I've identified through this report and the presentation some of those projects that have gained traction, and then looking at where that work can be embedded in both the county's operations and the city's operations, and how to embed it and how to embed it successfully and within or outside of the budget. So I will be, discussing this with the CJC folks, the sheriff's office, and everyone else involved in the process as we move forward in terms of the budget.
I guess my follow-up is, are there going to be recommendations from your office as to plan A, plan B, or give us some options as far as how we move forward?
I think the way that I was envisioning it is that you would be seeing it in the departmental budget process.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I had a few items, but okay. I had a comment on page 11. I thought you were quite understated, Lisa, when in this comment about other challenges, where you said, as well as national, state, and local events. The governor's resolution, or whatever he issued, edict, to county administrators came obviously during the pandemic and right after the George Floyd incident, which was just awful and certainly sent shockwaves throughout the whole country. And it's, you forget, but I would say people were so keyed up and emotional at that time. And undertaking this, I think we had a sense that we needed to do something. And looking at this, some of it worked, some of it didn't work as well as we wanted, and some of it not as we expected, but in different ways. I think it's important to keep in mind how much work was done and how many things we tried, and to do it in a collaborative way throughout the county, but also with our partners at the city. It's a mixed bag. And going to Shauna's question, where do we go from here? I think there's lots of discussion we're going to need to have to figure that out. I don't want to put you on the spot, Mona, but did you have any thoughts on next steps?
I think, a big mouth anyway. For some of the next steps is, the work has really just begun. We've just started taking off, and to be able to hold ourselves accountable and transparent with our community is to really put a good faith effort into continuing the work that has been started. We've had a lot of commitment from community members that are interested in seeing this work happen and to see it continue. So.
Yeah, okay. Sheriff, Shauna, did you have something?
I'll just add on that, Rich, and I think what we tried to do was be reasonable in our approach, and I think other communities that are very similar to ours. My daughter goes to University of Vermont, and I had to call the police on an incident that happened in Burlington, Vermont. And initially, you pick up the phone, and it's a voicemail that says, our city council has cut our funding completely. We don't have anyone to take your phone call right now. If this is an assault or, and it lists, a plethora of crimes, please hold on and you will get a dispatcher. If not, please go to our website and fill out a grievance. And, it's eye-opening because I think, that government body really put some serious restrictions on their spending and then also on their mindset of how they're going to serve their community. And, for someone who was trying to reach the police to get help, I really felt like I had a stop sign there, and it was really frustrating. So I'm glad we didn't take drastic steps either way to prohibit what our sheriff's department's able to do. But I think also we took some baby steps in reaching out to our community.
Okay. Sheriff, I'd ask the same question to you of just generally, where do you think we go next?
Well, I think if you look at the report, I think the amount of work, like you mentioned yourself, has just been incredible, regardless of who's done it, who's done what parts of it. I didn't see much in there as way of recommendations that was really left, in my opinion. But the work we have started, especially with our Transparency Hub, there's still a lot of work to do in that. I obviously want to see the care team expand. I think that's a huge asset to our community. It's been largely successful. As I mentioned in the past, New York State Division of Criminal Justice Services, based on a couple presentations, either the undersheriff or myself have done in Albany, were really picked up on by them, and they asked us recently to take part in their New York State Criminal Justice Research Consortium and link us to our researcher to look at the care team and maybe get some other ideas on how we can expand upon that and what's maybe needed additionally to make it more of a success than it already is. So I think that's a big thing I'd like to see continue. Obviously with the health department too, looking at a new grant on that, an additional team. I think that's been one of the larger successes. The transparency hubs on all the agencies and the care team and sheriff clerk. So I'd like to see that stuff definitely continue.
Okay. I did have a question on page 12, and it's talking about the civilian response unit. And I did some simple math and divided the cost by the 114 or 243 incidents, I'm sorry, and I got to $411 a call, which seems like a lot, but maybe it's displacing calls where deputies would have to respond, and maybe it's more appropriate to circumstances in the community. But I was hoping to get your response on that. Is this cost effective?
Yeah, I mean, Rich, when you put it that way, yeah, it is very expensive. I can't argue with that, $400 and some a call. I'll trust you on your math with that.
I could be wrong on my math.
No, I'm sure you're right. But, I mean, it's something that, I think that's one of the biggest thrusts the community came forward with was alternative responses to law enforcement. So I think the cost is money well spent. We've been able to expand on the job duties now that we got the second clerk in there. I think we're going to see more activity come forward from them. So, yeah, I don't know if you could really put a dollar figure on that based on what it does and what the community asks for. So I think it's a good thing.
Just to add to that, the sheriff's clerks do so many more things than just those calls that you're seeing, and we're working on the ability to better track that. Like what I mean by is they might take that initial call that will be reflected in the data, but then they also conduct follow-up calls with the victim of that crime to see and provide them with resources in the community that they could explore to make themselves whole. They've also taken over our sex offender management program, which doesn't necessarily get reflected in the numbers that you see. So they are doing much more than just handling calls. We keep them busy in between as well.
So there's a real community connection element, it sounds like.
And some of that stuff isn't really necessarily tracked by stats, so.
Okay. And I did the same math for the care team, and it sounds like it's a little bit more, as you'd expect, because they're out on the road and there's all sorts of things going on. But there, I came out with $670 per call. But the nature of what they're responding to and the downside consequences, it seems like that's what it's going to cost.
Yeah. And the nice thing about when they have a call, they're spending a lot more time on that call than a deputy normally would have. because it takes a lot more time to connect somebody to resources, actually help them through a crisis moment and all that, where a deputy is always worried about what call's coming in next. They may have one or two on backlog. So you can't really measure that either. I think the work that goes into that isn't necessarily matches up with just the call numbers.
And just to expand on that as well, I mean, they're up to 204 calls as of today, so I'm not quite sure what number you used. But one of the data points that we wanted to track, and this came from speaking with other counties that are doing similar programs, is how often the care team can cancel an EMS or an ambulance en route, and we're trying to calculate the cost savings in that. And that happens quite often, that they're able to de-escalate or stabilize the person on scene, and they could cancel the second unit or an EMS or fire department response. So that's cost savings that's harder to reflect, but we are trying to track that, and that's one of the things we hope to work with DCGS to better understand.
Thank you. And again, I don't want to monopolize, but Mona, I had a question on page 14. The resource hubs, it looks like you went well below budget cost. How did you do that?
Well, right now we're just utilizing what we have. So very minimal materials were needed. Most of the knowledge is in my head, so you don't have to pay for that. So that's the good part. So, I mean, we have advertising, partnering with other agencies. So right now, I mean, that list is growing. We've got Whole Health that comes to the Groton Resource Hub with me every Tuesday, utilizing other resources within the community and other organizations as partners is saving money. So we don't have to spend any money going out and finding these resources. They're already here. We just have to make the connections. And then just the materials. So we send out mailers, that's a cost, and the computer, the cell phone, and the printer, and that's all we really need to get started and, to move along. So that's how we're able to save some money for the county and the city for these resource hubs.
And what kind of assistance are you providing people at the hubs?
In particular, I'm going to pick Groton. Groton's probably one of my biggest hubs right now. So I've helped with the resources that we're looking at right now are housing, connecting some of the senior citizens with other resources to help them pay for housing. So for instance, I had she's not a young lady, but I had a woman who was interested in finding out how she could get her rent subsidized. So I introduced her to the idea of Section 8, and we filled out some paperwork, and I made sure that the paperwork was turned in. She got on the waiting list. She got her Section 8. We started looking for other resources for housing to bring her closer to town so she could make it to her doctor's appointments on using TCAT transportation and not being so isolated out in Groton. She now lives at McGraw House. We filled out an application for McGraw House. I ran into her at one of the coffee shops downtown the other day, and she's like, "Oh my God, fancy meeting you here." And so, she misses Groton. She loves the area, but it's a much better way of living for her. She's able to have a little bit more connection to the in-town resources and also her family. Other things are transportation referrals. Able to hook a family up that needed, dad needed back surgery, mom doesn't drive. How are we supposed to get there? What do you think? So, made that connection with Fish. And so now they're able to get their transportation over to the hospital in Syracuse. Some of the other resource hubs, a gentleman out in Enfield is a retired veteran. He wanted some help with making a connection to veteran services. So we connected him with JR here in Tompkins County, and that led to a better connection over in Cuga County. Just helped with navigating the process of applying for entitlements through New York State. So, you go on the New York State Gov website and it, walk through the checklist of what someone might be eligible for. Sometimes it can't be done in person because of the hours. I had a Groton school teacher. She works at the high school. She used the phone. She called me on the cell phone that is listed on the flyers and at the library. Sarah made the connection for us. We did her work through email and over the phone. Recently lost her husband, so there goes, half of her income for her family. What resources are available for her out there? So that's just a couple of the, things that we're hitting on. Connection with different heating resources. My water heater just went, or my furnace went out. How do I find resources to help me figure this out? Another connection that was just made is with a food pantry here in Ithaca that provides fresh fruit and vegetables. So I made that connection with Anna Ortiz through No More Tears. I can't pronounce the Spanish version of it, so I'll leave it at that.
No más lágrimas.
There you go. So her and Sarah are going to connect, and that'll, it'll be a resource. I'll grab the stuff from Anna here in town and take it out there. She can't necessarily get to the Groton Resource Hub, but I'm there every Tuesday, so I'll take out whatever. And so Sarah was really appreciative and thankful for that. So.
Okay. I had one more for the sheriff and you. Back in 21, when I was young, we were talking about reimagining, and I said, you know what I would like to see qualitatively is that when somebody has a problem, they feel comfortable calling the police, and when the police come, they help the police try to solve the problem. And I'm wondering, do you think we're any closer? Have we improved that at all?
Who's going to go first?
I'll speak first.
All right.
I will share through our community conversations and dialogues that we have established with our trained facilitators. We did have an incident at one of the community conversations. We were at the Audrey Cooper URO space on State Street, and we had the chief in there with us, and there was a little ruckus outside, and this gentleman, he's peeking through the window looking at us. And he sees us and he's like, I know you. And I'm like, what's up? He comes in, he's looking around. He's like, is there a sergeant in here? And we're like, no, but there's a chief. And so him being able to see us within the community in that space and see some familiar faces, he felt comfortable enough to come in and ask for some help. And, Chief went out and had a conversation with him. He was out there for quite a while with him and came back in, and it was smooth sailing. Someone that frequents that area was like, what are you guys doing in there? They were curious as to why are you in our neighborhood and you're here with the police? Can we come in and have a conversation with them too? Absolutely. So do I think it's working? I do. Is it baby steps? Absolutely. But a baby step is better than no step at this point. So.
Yeah, I'll just add, Rich, when this whole process started, I sat on a lot of community meetings and all that, and not much was asked of me at the time. I mean, it all seemed to be geared towards the city and the Ithaca Police Department. I think they had a rough couple years with some rough incidences, and maybe that led to some negativity, but I feel like we've always had the support out in the county from the community, and I think it remains that way. I don't think anything that Mona mentioned or what the CJC has done has certainly hurt anything, and I take her word on it, if it's had impact, especially in the city. I don't see how any of it could be received negatively.
Anybody else? Anybody on screen? All right. Well, again, thank you for putting this report together. It is a reminder of how ambitious we were back when we voted on this resolution, and we have accomplished quite a bit, but baby steps. This conversation will obviously continue as we start working through our budget questions. Lisa.
I also just wanted to recognize, because many of you may not have met him, Matthew Davids is here with us. He's the data analyst that's been working with Mona at the CJC and put together the dashboard. So just wanted
David, is there anything you wanted to share with us?
Matthew Davids, yeah.
Matthew.
No, just says visit meeting one in the January.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Let's see, you have a project approval review, a PAR, Public Safety Committee.
So this is the project approval request form for departments reporting to the Public Safety Committee. This one is from the Department of Emergency Response. They've submitted a request for emergency services radio equipment. I see Mike Steitley is on via Zoom if there are questions about this request.
Yes. I'm trying to remember how we address a PAR. Do we vote on this? Do we put it on the floor?
Not at this point. It's just, at this point, it's for information only. It will be part of the capital plan and part of that budget process.
Okay. I know that this has been a long-running discussion, I'll say, between our town's volunteer fire departments and EMS and the county on how do we pay for this. So I did have a series of questions here. Would the local departments actually be paying anything under this proposal?
And Mike, would you, I believe the answer is no, but Mike, if you want to chime in here.
No, it's really our intention to really kind of help supplement what they are able to afford. We've noticed that a lot of the local departments aren't able to purchase as many radios as they need. And our hope with this program is to really supplement them in that regard. Many of the local departments have radios that have been at end of life for quite some time. It's become more challenging for us to update those radios and to program them with changes based on current needs, because we run the risk of during the programming process making them inoperable. So our hope again is really just to provide some support to local departments, because most of these radios cost about $3,500 a piece, and they just don't have enough funding to purchase all the radios necessary to support their operation.
So when you say supplement, so they would still be responsible for radios, we would just be providing some additional?
Some additional radios, yes. When we talked about it here internally as a department, we would not look to replace a radio for radio, per se, one for one. It would really come up to a specific number based on the size of the department and their needs. So maybe we'll say maybe 4 or 5 radios per department.
Okay, and would this end up being a target increase? It looks like it's $100,000 a year into the future.
So yeah, well, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah, would this be a target increase to the budget, that it's $100,000 a year into the future?
No, so what we're looking to do is just make this a 3-year project over the next 3 years through capital.
Okay, because the PAR is showing through 2029. And
Yeah,
I'm sorry,
I'm not sure that Mike has it directly in front of him. It was $100,000 a year over a 5-year period.
Yes, my mistake.
okay.
So I could also chime in, Rich. So this is something too, we had a lengthy discussion on with Mike and his team because I believe by past resolution, when the county first received this radio equipment, and I'm sure Lee lived it, we had a grant and were able to provide the equipment for all of the partnering agencies, and I think by resolution stated that we would not be, the county would not be responsible for that replacement. And there's a difference between the portable and the 2 different types of radios there, but not wanting to set a precedent. At the same time, the security of the whole system and the network is only as strong as its weakest link, and we have no authority over the investment of some of the other partnering agencies and municipalities. So we also, in that discussion, talked about this might be an attractive project to go out for grant funding for, once again, to save county expense if we can. So I think that's also part of this equation that we would like to do to be able to cover the costs.
Lee?
Just a couple of questions. So it's $500,000 over the 5 years, but if there were a target adjustment, it's really $100,000 on a continuing basis. Is that how I read this?
Or it could be, I believe the intent, and Mike, you can correct me if I'm wrong, was that it's a one-time expense of $500,000, but being that the budget being what it is and trying to be fiscally prudent and thinking that we weren't going to bond for this, that it could be stretched out and phased in over a 5-year period. If we got a grant to cover the costs in its entirety, I believe it would be implemented all in one shot. But Mike, please correct me if I'm wrong.
Nope, that's exactly right.
You know, one impact of getting the grant the last time was it seems like the radios reached end of life at the same time. So we had all of these departments speaking to us saying, hey, buy us new radios, when we hadn't really done it in the first place. But given how important it is to have a solid communication system, maybe we do have to think about just helping with this in some manner. I guess I might feel more comfortable with some sort of cost share. But Lee, I might ask for some of your expertise in this area. Does this make sense to you as a funding model? Not to put you on the spot, but you've lived radios.
It does, and I do think because of the rising cost of the equipment, there needs to be some kind of a subsidy or assistance to it. I'm just thinking back on how this whole thing was structured. That's what turned this hair white, 20 years ago. So we did have the advantage of that time of two $500,000 COPS grants, courtesy of Congressman Hinchy, matched by Congressman Bullard, and we had some state reimbursements retroactively that come in that was to the tune of $600,000. Senator Seward secured money for pagers. We put together a package at the time of $2 million that equipped all of public safety at a minimum level, and I appreciate what Mike outlined as far as looking at the department needs and basing it on a number of factors, which was the approach we took then, and I certainly think that's what you would need to do now. But the departments did, in addition to that $2 million, I think they contributed another $1.5 million in order to expand on the numbers that were being issued. So some have it in their budgets, some don't. But given that we're almost 20 years into the program and the replacement costs are even more today than what they were, there probably does need to be some help there. And one of our other concerns at the time was trying to maintain a level of standardization. And if we were to just say, it's all up to the departments to buy their own radios, you lose that because of the uniformity, and that creates all kinds of problems in integrating with the system, and you really want to keep it as standardized as you possibly can. But you could go out and buy a portable radio for $1,000 versus $3,000, and its quality is not going to be there. That creates a liability for the county in that if there's a radio failure or it doesn't work well, who do you point that blame to, the radio manufacturer or the radio system? So there's a lot of factors there that really support having this ability to keep a standardization. And I'm also assuming that by doing this and knowing that there's a continuing pot of money, that you're probably being extended through Motorola or whatever manufacturer, some kind of group buying ability. So lots of things there in play. I'm sure that Mike's weighing on proposing this.
Yeah, Mike, do you have something to add?
Sure. Yeah, so just on that last point that Lee made, so right now we do receive a 32% discount for economy of scale purchases made through Motorola, so we would be able to leverage that, which is quite nice. In fact, about a year and a half ago, we brought Newfield School Systems onto our radio system, and because of the number of radios they purchased, they experienced a 36% discount from Motorola directly. And just some other points that Lee made that I just want to touch on because he's 100% right. You know, we have some community agencies that have purchased used radios off of sites like eBay, and then if you don't know, our department here underneath Chris Saxon's leadership does most of the programming of the radios for our community-based services. Have received some of these radios, these used radios, to be programmed just to find out that the radios aren't capable of being added to our system. So in an effort to try to save money, because it's really all they could afford, they ended up getting radios that they ultimately couldn't use. That's only happened a few times, but that is some somewhat of a consequence based because of the cost of what the radios cost today.
All right, and is there a draft user agreement, or is that yet to be created?
No, that's yet to be created. We figured once we saw, whether or not we were going to get, the support, if, the leadership thought that it was, a good approach for us to take this step, but we would have that. And we're fortunate enough that, Lee kept copious amount of records, and I've done a lot of reading of some of his great work. And we do have some models that will be able to use from when this system was originally rolled out. And just to kind of underscore something else, when Lee mentioned about agencies not being able to afford radios, in some instances, some agencies have the original radios that were purchased some 20 years ago, and that's the radios that they're still using. And even though, the expectation was for them to budget, some of them just found it very difficult to do that. And often the radios are what are sacrificed when they have other needs, because if they still work, they'll continue to use them. But then when they break, they don't have the funding to replace them, or they'll bring them to us and we'll do our best to try to either repair them or send them out to have them repaired. But it's often the thing that's sacrificed the most in most of our community-based budgets.
Okay. One more question. ES Chat, has that reduced the need for as many radios?
It's really hard to say. I really can't say enough great things about ES Chat. And later on, when under my report, I talk a little bit about our event on the 8th of the month. I'll talk about that. We do see there's more of a desire now than ever for departments and individuals to get on ES Chat. What I can say is that we're using ES Chat now internally as a county entity for interoperability with leadership. We're using it in the mental health building on Green Street for security. So without ES Chat, we would have probably otherwise really would have ended up using our public safety radio system to do what these ES Chat devices or the software is capable of being installed on the phone is doing for them. So I think we have 6 units now in mental health. Those units are not very expensive. They're working very well. They do weekly checks. And again, without ES Chat, we would have probably had to purchase them public safety radios. So I don't know necessarily that the fire departments are quite there yet as far as, the need to, or, for the desire to completely move to ES Chat. I don't know if I'd even recommend that, but I can say that we're using ES Chat as an alternative to our public safety radios where it's appropriate. And that seems to be working very well. And I believe there's a cost savings because of it.
Lee.
Mike, would you say the ES Chat offloads a lot of traffic that would otherwise be coming through dispatch that you'd have to manage? And
I think to some degree, and I think as it grows, Lee, I think it will continue to do that. Again, the event on the 8th, we used it quite extensively for interdepartmental communication, and I also used it as a way of keeping the county leadership team apprised of as to what was going on. So I think that, yeah, most certainly, but I think as time goes on, it's going to be more obvious that it's doing just that. More evident.
Okay. I guess I'm comfortable with this. So this would mean that $100,000 is going to be in the capital budget coming up.
Yes, unless we can find an alternative funding source.
Okay. Shauna, Mike, Lee, does this make sense to you? We're not voting, but just, Shauna.
It would be helpful, if I could kind of get the okay from this committee, I would love to kind of peddle our goods to our state and federal representatives and see if maybe there's some money lying around. Okay.
I'm fine with that.
Good.
Lisa, would that?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Okay. I don't know.
Well, we might have other priorities, was my only consideration, but yeah, it sounds like, please.
Okay.
Yeah.
Work on that.
Okay, Mike, did you have anything?
No, it looks good.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks for the presentation. All right. Are we ready to keep moving? We're up to the Sheriff's Office. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks, Rich.
One question. That's the only public safety fire forum?
Yes, well, there's, yes.
Interesting, okay.
You started to say something else.
I have to go back and check because we had a discussion back and forth about two items in regard to the public safety building project, and one was whether or not that was to come through here or strictly F&I, and the second was whether the funding for the schematic design was in 2025 or 2026. So you might have another one in a month.
But department-wise, that's it. I'm still reeling from F&I from last week and the number of par forms that came through. So this is a little relief here.
Oh, good, yeah.
Thanks. Sorry to interrupt.
That's all right, Lee. You all have my written report attached to the agenda packet. I just probably should mention, we did start a couple months ago, I think, putting these on our website as well as part of our transparency efforts. Figure the more eyes that can see it, the better. A lot of good things in it, some trainings some of our deputies and COs went to recently, a lot of good community engagement photos in there. Our inmate count is 57 today, so that's kind of holding, I think, somewhat consistent, although maybe a little higher than seen a few years past. We had 2 correction officers graduate from the Corrections Academy, which maybe doesn't sound like a big deal, but it's a big deal for us because, you know, with a lot of new officers, a lot of sheriff's offices are seeing it across the state where they're kind of backlogged on getting correction officers trained in the academy in the time the Commission of Corrections requires us to. So they've been working. We're going to have a lot rotating through the academies over the next year at least. As far as our transparency hub, the next one slated to come out is our DWI dashboard. To be honest, we picked that one because it's kind of an easy one to create based off the data that we already have on hand. As you know, our DWI's Stop DWI program was originally handled by a full-time employee down at County Admin. The undersheriff has taken that on for quite some time, doing the work on a part-time basis. So we felt that would be a nice, easy one to get out and give us a break from the last couple, which were a lot more challenging. As you may know from other committees, our renovation work at the jail is stopping at the end of this month and picking up again in October. It's a nice break for all of us. It has been trying to work throughout the building for all of us around all the construction, so we're kind of looking forward to that. Our domestic terrorism task force has been going strong. Lieutenant Ziegenfuss in our civil office leads that up. He's in the process now of trying to get such a large group dwindled down to a smaller group to actually start taking cases and doing tip reviews and handling complaints. Once that group is created, then we will come up with a way to have some type of submission portal for people in the public to submit tips. Last thing is our give detail. As I mentioned, I think last month, the Sheriff's Office work in managing the give program will end at the end of this month and will be taken over by IPD. We'll continue to work with them in information sharing and any help they may need, but our hands-on aspect of that will come to an end here next couple of weeks.
Okay. Why is there a gap in the construction? Is it just staging so that they're doing different work now?
Yeah, I guess it's summertime. All the contractors have to start working on the schools while they're on summer break. So I guess that's just part of the process. Rel, he's been fantastic. We just had a construction meeting, I think, last week. He seems to be managing it very well. We're really happy with the progress and the work that's been done thus far. So we're confident starting in October, that's when we'll take on the kitchen work. And then we have to figure out, what we're going to do with incarcerated individuals, where we're going to house them, how we're going to feed them and all that stuff. But there's plans in the work for it. So again, it'll give us a nice break to take a break from it and get all those plans in place.
Lisa?
Oh, yeah, I did have one more thing. Sorry, Lisa. One of the things I'm very happy about is the LEAD program, Law Enforcement Assisted Diversion. I know Shauna was part of it. I know Matt's going to be part of it. We've been working with Travis to get that started out in the county. They're working on a grant. Reach Medical is obviously a huge partner in that, and we're going to start in the village of Lansing, where we have a lot of retail theft, things of that nature, a lot of minor crime. So we're really excited to get that started and see how it works out for us in the county.
Good. Okay. Did you have something else? Or
That
it?
was, I was going to mention the lead, yeah.
Okay. Right, questions? We do have a couple resolutions. We have the authorization to accept the gun-involved violence elimination 2024-2025 grant, Sheriff's Office, ID 12508. Shauna moves. Mike seconds. I did have a question on that. In your notes on page 31, are the systems operating, the cameras and the...
My understanding is we've had quite a delay getting everything operating because of DOT right-of-way requirements. They want money. They want lease agreements for 10 years. So we're trying to find alternative locations that we can install these devices. There are a handful, I understand, already in the city. I couldn't tell you offhand if they were ones funded by the city or through the Sheriff's Office having the grant. But we're full bore in identifying locations and getting it all worked out, and we're hopefully have everything installed and operational.
Is the gunshot detection system,
Yes.
that's working?
That's all installed and working.
Okay. And are you,
That was funded through the Sheriff's Office grant for the sole purpose of putting it in the city.
and have you had instances where that's activated? You've heard?
Yeah, it's been activated, I guess, for some different things. I can't remember exactly, but yeah, when we needed it to be activated, I can say it wasn't activated when we wanted it to. Not because it didn't work, just because of the location of when the gunshot occurred. But yeah, we're confident it's working and going to be a good tool.
Yeah. Any further questions, comments?
Yeah,
Lisa?
may I ask, just to clarify, so this funding is coming to the county for 2024, 2025, even though for that fiscal year, the IPD applied for the grant. This will come to the county to support the existing cameras?
Right. When we had the conversation with the Ithaca Police about taking over the GIVE grant for this next year, we pushed to have part of those grant funds continue to fund the flock devices, LPRs, and gunshot detection.
Great, thank you.
It sounds like it's been quite an issue of trying to find locations for the cameras. And you were dealing with, is it NYSEG and?
Correct.
Okay. And so now are you looking for alternative locations?
We're
Is
looking
that-
for alternative locations. What we started to do was identify businesses that may be willing to participate. We have an agreement they can sign to do that, and we're taking that as the first approach. There's a lot of businesses that see the benefit of this when it comes to crimes committed against them. So that's kind of where we're trying to focus. But it's not as easy as it sounds. I mean, you have to, for the county devices particularly, we're trying to capture entrance points and exit points into the county because we have a lot of gun crime and drug activity that comes from outside the county. So trying to actually identify and locate a business in those areas can be difficult. And then you have, rights of way with all the highways and stuff that may come into play where the camera or device would be too far back, right away to be functionable. A lot of issues.
I'm wondering about the traffic signals, like the lights. Would it be possible to attach the cameras to that system?
Possible. There's two options. Some need power to generate them, or I imagine they could probably get it off a traffic light. And a lot of the ones we're utilizing now will be on their own poles with solar power.
Okay.
So anything's a possibility.
Lee?
Without disclosing anything sensitive, how wide a radius are you attempting to focus on, and how many locations would these devices be situated at?
Altogether, including the city of Ithaca, where the majority would be, there's 35 devices altogether. That's not counting the gunshot detection devices. The rest are just LPR, license plate reader. They capture a license plate on the back of the car. I don't know, I don't recall offhand how many are in the county versus the city, but the majority are in the city. And the idea, again, was we tried to disperse them in a way that would benefit all law enforcement agencies throughout the county. Have agreed to give full access as well.
Certainly your focus is where there's a history of gunshots.
Well, yeah, obviously, but especially with the gunshot detection device, and that was geared towards a location that such a device. The rest, like I said, are really trying to get the main routes.
Anna?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? We ready to vote? All those in favor? All right. That's unanimous. Great. And then you have a resolution, authorization to accept law enforcement technology grant, 2024-2025 ID 12474. Could I get a motion on that? Lee moves. Mike seconds. Do you have anything you want to tell us about this?
Yeah, one admission, I wish we asked for a lot more money. They didn't tell us how much we could apply for, and then when we got the results, we saw some other police departments got a lot more money than we did simply because they asked. So that's a lesson to be learned, which I thought I learned years ago, but we kind of missed it on this one. Nevertheless, it's still almost $100,000. It's going to give us a lot of equipment, save us some money in our budget. The license plate readers that it mentioned, those are the ones that are in our patrol cars already, so it'll help fund that. Camera for our transport van, that's the van that the corrections uses to transport inmates. That's just a precaution, and it's something common. Again, the grant was used just to fund things we've already funded in the past to save us a little bit of money. The one thing that we've never had is the true narcotics analyzer, which we didn't have things like that back when I was working road patrol, but I understand that it's a really nifty device, and it can scan drugs and give you an idea of what you have. So that'll help us, definitely.
Is that a portable, or is that at the sheriff's department?
It's portable.
But you're probably going to use it at the public safety building? Or would you bring it out in a...
It could be used. It could be used there. It could be used in investigations during call response. Whenever we come into contact with any unknown substance that we need to determine, for evidentiary value and for the safety of our officers, it could be used in a multitude.
Any further questions on this? All right, we ready to vote? All those in favor? That's unanimous. Great. Okay. Is there anything else from the sheriff or for the sheriff? All right, let's keep moving. Whole health department. Let's see, do we have somebody from the health department on screen or here?
Yes, Frank is on screen.
Oh, there he is. He's blank. Okay.
Sorry.
Welcome, Frank. How are you doing?
I'm good.
You have a resolution here, authorization to accept funds, create positions, and budget adjustment for crisis alternative response and engagement team, Office of Mental Health funding, whole health, ID 12505. Shauna moves. Lee seconds. Frank, do you want to tell us about this?
Sure. You've heard previously throughout your meeting some allusion to an expansion of the care teams, and we were able to secure some funding from the Office of Mental Health to expand the program. We've been working under the clinic license in our mental health clinic to date, and in our conversations with OMH, they are very much interested in seeing these types of programs expand around the state and are in the process of creating new licensing for these types of programs. It's not there yet, so what we would technically be moving towards is a certified program, which will move it out of our clinic under its own kind of umbrella, and it will allow us to bill for some of the service. We're estimating about 20% of the billing would be possible just because of the situations and circumstances that are included. But the supplemental funding from OMH would support through 2025 the addition of a new team, which would include another licensed clinical therapist and sheriff's deputy. It would also require building some infrastructure, so it includes 50% of a senior licensed clinical therapists to supervise the therapists. We've been absorbing that in the clinic to date. So that would kind of bring that out and make it its own, its own program. The funding is only through 2025. So I've tried to be clear throughout this whole process that expanding it could potentially put us in the situation next year of asking the legislature about sustainable funding moving beyond that. There is some hope that OMH might continue to fund it, depending on their resource availability, but that's not a promise. So I just want to be as transparent as possible, as we continue to grow this program, that there could potentially be additional county costs in the future to maintain the same staffing levels. So with that, this resolution is to establish the second team and the additional infrastructure by accepting the funds from OMH and implementing it as described.
Okay. Shauna.
Yeah, I am really excited to see this program expanded. I think it's a very good investment, and I realize that we're not necessarily paying for it this year, but we could in future years. And I just want to say thank you to Jen and Derek for being open to doing something that's sometimes outside of your traditional law enforcement. And, you're taking risks and doing things that, typically haven't been part of the conversation. So I want to acknowledge that. That's really, really special.
Mike.
I'm sorry if you already answered this, but when we talk expansion, are we talking we're going to have two teams on the same hours, or are we going to expand it to hours we're not already covering?
The intent is to expand it to hours we're not already covering in the evenings and on weekends. As the sheriff mentioned earlier, one of the main details is finding a clinician that fits that description and willing to do that, but that is our intention with the program.
Right. I mean, I expect this to be successful, so I'm just thinking on the out years how we're going to pay for this. So but $600,000 to get it up and running. Do you think it'll cost that much every year going forward? I mean, that's mostly personnel, I would think.
Yeah, no, we don't think so. Some of it is startup costs, but there is also the unknown around the billing. We're really estimating a very low number on that because we're unsure about what might be the reality in our ability to bill for some of the service. But our estimates are closer to 150 to 200,000 annually to sustain post this initial startup grant. But obviously we'll be working to try to, fine tune that over the next year.
We're holding you to that, Frank, so thank you. 150,000, there we go.
Shauna.
Yeah, I mean, I think with this program, there could be a situation where you're shifting costs. And so instead of putting people in our emergency rooms, in our hospitals, in our mental health clinics, incarcerating them, like we're keeping them out of jails, we're keeping them at home, we're trying to stabilize them there. And so, we could look at data all day, but that's something that would be really hard to attach the work that they're doing to some of these numbers.
Yeah, if I can just say too, I mean, the care team in the LEAD program are kind of doing similar work, so they really go hand in hand. In fact, our conversation with Legislator Brooks is starting with the care team to handle the LEAD type referrals, at least as a starting point. So programs together really should have a huge impact.
And
Lisa?
also to throw in, if the LEAD grant application is successful, that would offer 3 years of funding for the care team deputy.
Oh, well, I hope you're successful. Frank, OMH certification of the mobile crisis team, how complicated is that process?
Actually, it's surprisingly not complicated right now. I think because it's not a formal license and they are trying to get these operational across the state, they are being very flexible and supportive. And in fact, are asking us, hey, when are you going to start moving forward on this? So, so far they've been a good partner in helping try to make this a reality.
Okay. Are we ready to vote? All those in favor? Sean? Unanimous. I assumed you were wanting to vote yes on that. Okay. Frank, thank you for coming in and sharing this with us. This is exciting.
Great. Thanks for having us and your support.
Okay. District Attorney, Matt, welcome.
Hi, Rich. So a couple things. I have been asked to present to the New York State Prosecutors Training Institute regarding the data dashboard that has been up for my office for the last 9 months or so, 9+ months. Some of the data that we use came directly from software or from the case management system that NIPT, the Prosecutors Training Institute, provides for us. So they were really excited to understand how we put together our dashboard, and so I think it's probably the first time ever that somebody from Tompkins County, who is usually an outlier at the DASNY meetings and NIPT meetings, it was asked to actually present something. So I'm pretty happy to do that and share our best practices with other counties across the state. On a different note, just a kind of anecdotal update on Raise the Age. We have a case right now where 3 youths were at George Jr. They escaped and stole a truck, drove the truck away from the county, and in the process stopped at a gas station. One of the youths had a taser somehow and tased a 65-year-old woman during the course of their adventure. They were caught in Franklin County, and since they were all placed with the SS, and that's why they were at George Jr. or William George Agency. So they weren't welcome back. They were placed in 3 different locations across the state. One's in Finger Lakes, one is in Rochester, and one is down near Westchester County. Now our sheriff's office is responsible to transport them back here individually, and I was able to coordinate with the court so that they weren't required to be back here 3 all at the same time, because that would be a lot of logistics that we didn't have to spare, but it's still a lot of logistics to make it happen. And all of that will happen for almost inevitably the case to be transferred to family court at that first appearance. The kid who used the taser, I'm looking at that more carefully because that's a little different than the other 2, just possessing a stolen vehicle and stealing something. Violence can be, but is not presumptively and automatically an exemption from Raise the Age. It's still, you can still do violent things and use certain weapons and have the automatic transfer to family court. So it's the point is that anytime there's discussion about Raise the Age at the state level, or you all are able to participate in that conversation, we've got to come back and try to be more pragmatic, at least accomplish the goal of Raise the Age, which is to protect youth and vulnerable people who are still developing. That's the point of Raise the Age, but it isn't to create logistical nightmares and to create additional costs and hoops to jump through for really no long-term benefit to anyone. So just putting it out there, I wanted to talk about that because that's something that I'm working on right now. Anytime a Raise the Age case comes in, I encourage the investigators to coordinate with me to make sure everybody who knows about it gets the notice, and we're working as seamlessly through the system as possible. And the investigator from the sheriff's office has done a great job of taking my guidance and following up on it. And so I'm very happy with his work. But it's kind of a big nightmare, logistical nightmare that has not been remedied at any legislative level. I'm happy to hear that GIVE is still, going and that there will be a level of cooperation between the Sheriff's Office and IPD. I can say that the number of cases that the GIVE program has produced in my office is significant, and that has made a difference in the community. I think, in terms of people who have been known to use guns on the street and to use them in the course of other illegal activities, there is a large percentage of the people that we would think of as the main players are already in jail and have cases against them. And that's important for the safety of the community. So that's just a short blurb on that, but I think the GIVE program is doing what it's supposed to be doing. And just finally, I've been talking about putting together a restorative justice program in Tompkins County, and that's a goal of mine to do in the next 12 months. I applied for a training grant from the Center for Justice Innovation. And that would be to have a 3-day training put on for members of my office and other stakeholders that I want to work with in terms of establishing a restorative justice program, and I got that grant. So I'm in the process of coordinating. It's not a money grant, it's just they're going to put on 3 days of training later on this year, but it's a stepping stone to a $250,000 grant to establish a restorative justice program. And that would be for the administrative piece of it that would not sit in the DA's office, and there's lots of reasons for that, people who are participating in restorative justice don't want to think they're participating in the system or the criminal justice system. They want it to be run by someone more friendly and perceived as objective. But that's money that we can use, which I think I'm hopeful to be able to get that grant down the line. So that's my short update.
Okay. I guess I have a comment that with upwards of 24,000 pieces of legislation proposed in Albany, they didn't do anything about raise the age, which seems to be such a glaring problem, and yet nothing happens, yet another year. But I guess that's not the only crying issue that didn't get any attention in Albany. Questions for our district attorney? When you talk about restorative justice, what would that program actually do?
So restorative justice, as I view it and based on my research, should be a step in the adjudicative process to promote healing, to promote accountability, to provide closure for victims of crimes, and also an opportunity for those victims to have a voice that they don't always have in the adjudicative system. So it would involve a voluntary process where, not to replace the court process, but as a detour from it, to be facilitated by professional trained facilitators, to give that face-to-face conversation. Here's how our lives have been changed by the crime that you committed. Here's how our lives will never be the same. For that person, the offender, to hear that, to understand, and to give an opportunity to tailor a resolution that incorporates some of that conversation, but also still not replace a court process and just be another factor that the court can take into consideration in determining what is justice. Because, if justice is different in every case, and a victim feeling like their voice is heard and that there is some accountability is a big piece of what justice is to me.
Mike?
Well, no, it's interesting that you're saying that. So you're saying that restorative justice in your office would be centered on the victim and how to restore them, because I think a lot of people would take restorative justice to mean how do we restore the offender to the community. I don't think it's really that nuanced, but it's interesting that you lay it out like that.
I mean, that is not the way I've read a lot on restorative justice, and there's a person who is, I think, the leader in restorative justice in the country, Danielle Sered. She wrote a book called Until We Reckon, and I got to meet her in New York City a couple months ago. And she runs an organization called Common Justice, in New York City, that organization does what I described. And, it certainly does have a very profound impact on the offender, and it does reduce recidivism because, if someone is faced with the consequences and the aftermath of what they've done, and they're confronted with it face to face, and they hear from the people whose lives have been changed because of their actions, that has an impact. It doesn't impact everybody, it doesn't change everybody, but it does have an impact. It does deter them, or at least give them pause in the future. And some people, it changes completely. So that's the model that I'm basing it on, is the until we reckon common justice model.
No, great, thank you, Matt.
Having attended a victim impact panel that the probation department puts on, it's really powerful.
Very.
Yeah, so good. Okay. Anything further for the district attorney? Otherwise, we'll keep moving. Next up is, I believe, Department of Emergency Response. And Michael, welcome.
Hello.
Danielle. And Joe. All right.
Rich, is there any place you'd like us to start, maybe with EMS, or how would you like us to proceed?
Well, let's see. It looks like you have 2 resolutions. Why don't we just talk about your report first?
Sure.
Is there anything you want to point out to us on that?
No, not this month.
Okay. I did have a question on page 46, the list of calls. It looks like traffic stops were substantially above average in the last month. And I'm wondering, is there something different going on with traffic stops?
Not that I know of. I mean, a local department may have been doing a special detail, but unfortunately, I don't really know.
Okay, I think the sheriff might have something here,
Yeah, maybe.
or our undersheriff.
Are you talking in compared to the 5-year comparison?
Yeah, yes.
Well, again, that's just difficult because you have to remember COVID was in those 5 years, so law enforcement agencies really
So the
ceased
average is quite
traffic.
low.
I suspect that would be one of the reasons why it seems high compared to the 5 years, because COVID's included in that. But also our staffing levels have increased, and we're participating in Stop DWI more as well as Give. So I think cumulatively those are probably the reasons.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Undersheriff.
Yeah. Then, Mike, on page 50, you have your projects, the backup center, text to 911, and it sounds like the backup center, you're installing equipment?
Yes. So we've made tremendous progress really over the last month and a half. As you know, we were significantly delayed because of a building code issue that required us to get a variance. The good news is that all that construction, for the most part, is complete, and we will start installing the rest of our equipment. We were installing some equipment when we had to stop the project, but our phone system will start to be installed the second week of July, followed by Motorola radio system, which will probably be the 3rd or 4th week of July. And then the 1st or 2nd week of August, we anticipate our ITS partners getting in there to finish up the work. We're hoping right now that will be wrapped up by mid-August. We do intend to start the renovations of the current 911 space here on Brown Road October 1st. So we're hoping everything will get buttoned up and we'll be able to move our staff over to the backup center hopefully by the 1st week of September, when we can start testing and making sure we're ready to go live there, because we'll be live there full time while we do the renovation work here. Again, expected to start October the 1st. So we finally got through some of those real restrictive obstacles, and we've made some real progress.
All right. Well, that's really exciting news. That's been a long time coming. The Cordy Voyager AI software QA/QI project canceled. What is that?
So that was a product that we were looking at that we're really excited about it, frankly, and it was really disappointing that we had to step away from it. But basically, the Cordy AI program was designed to do 100% quality assurance reviews on every single medical call that we take. Right now, we do random samplings. We have an entire protocol in place to do that, but this would have, using AI technology, would have done a review on 100% of our medical calls to make sure that we were consistent with our protocols. Unfortunately, Cordy, which was the partner that we were working with, had a partnership with our CAD RMS system, which is referred to as Flex, and and another product called Danielle, help me out for a second with the dispatch software.
ProQA.
ProQA, sorry. Yeah, just got a little sidetracked there. ProQA is the software that we use to screen our medical calls, and the partnership between Cordy and ProQA has been severed. So of what we were hoping to do, we're not going to be able to do. So that's why we had to walk away from the project. But we were excited about it, and we're hoping that that they were able to repair the relationship. We really needed that relationship to be intact in order for us to move forward, because it really needed to access that system in order to pull the data out to ensure that the dispatchers were screening the calls properly. So it really came down to it being an advanced screening tool that would have allowed us to, again, to do quality assurance on 100% of our emergency medical calls.
Okay. And then Rapid SOS Premium. What is that?
Well, that's a lot. There's a lot that goes into Rapid SOS. We currently have a Rapid SOS product, but it's considered like a free version. One of the purposes for Rapid SOS is to capture all of our cell calls that are making 911 calls to get a better location of where that caller is calling from. It works rather well. But this will also allow us to have text to 911, which is something that we've been really looking forward to. So part of this premium package will allow us to add text to 911, which we don't currently have up and running, but really to accurately locate an individual using a cell phone, and the reliability and the accuracy of that is what we're really aiming for, in addition to the text to 911.
Okay, and then finally, Power DMS.
So Power DMS is a project we've been working on now for the last 18 months. Power DMS is essentially a policy management program that we're using. So rather than having all of our policy and procedures in a Word document that make it very difficult to search, our dispatchers in particular really need to rely on our policy and procedures in the now. So that means that they're coming across a situation where they need to check a policy or procedure while handling a call. This will allow them to rapidly pull up that policy, look for specific protocols that are in place, and it just essentially allows us to better manage all of our policy and procedures.
Okay. And then on page 51, you've got your EMS program manager data, and it looks like that part of your office is doing what we anticipated it would be doing. Joe, do you have anything to add?
Nothing in particular, unless somebody has any questions.
No, this looks really good.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, we're really pleased, and we're really getting a lot of great feedback from the community. So we're really excited about the program.
Okay, any other questions or comments on the report? Lee?
Just a comment with regard to the rapid response program. And you've mentioned in the past, Rich, that it's not only to targeted areas, but it provides some capacity. And I know of an incident last week where 2 from the staff were able to intercede in a critical call and help got an ambulance coming in. It is demonstrating help to lots of different areas that may not be so obvious.
Okay, good news. All right. You have a resolution to move unspent funds from the 2022 Triad Foundation grant to the Department of Emergency Response in support of ES Chat, Doc ID 12492. Could we put that? Lee moves. Shauna seconds. Is there anything you want to tell us about this resolution, Michael?
No, it's just to make sure that the money that we had in the triad, that we received through triad is available for spending.
Yeah, I guess I would just say thank you to Triad. This seems like they helped us demonstrate or try this out, and they've demonstrated that it's really made a difference in our communication across the county. So really, really valuable grant money. Lee?
You don't often see $250,000 between two grants from a private foundation to a governmental entity like that. That is significant. And
Yeah. Well, it certainly has made a huge difference. Yeah.
those that can extend the thanks to the principals of the organization, it's great to send that message back, Mike.
Yeah. And
Yeah, and that speaks to the other resolution. I'm sorry, Rich.
no, I was just going to say, I was speaking with Daniel Cornell about ES-Chat and the probation department, where they really didn't have a communication system before this, and it's made a real difference for their probation officers. So, yeah, this is great. Anybody have anything else? Are we ready to vote? All those in favor? That's unanimous. Okay, and then you have resolution to accept a grant from the Triad Foundation to the Department of Emergency Response in support of the Backup Center for Emergency Responder Communications, DOC ID 12469. Shauna? Okay. Lee seconds. And Michael, is there anything you want to tell us on this one?
Yeah, so this is another rather lofty grant that we received for the Triad Foundation, and I just want to acknowledge Chief Harlan McEwen, who really helped us secure that funding. He's been a great ambassador, but this will also be for ES-Chat, and the primary use of this grant will be to essentially create a redundant ES-Chat system at the backup center. So in order for ES-Chat, so ES-Chat really has two different aspects to it. There's one where we're utilizing a system that's specifically ES-Chat supported platform, and the second part of the system is allowing us to connect our public safety radios to the ES-Chat system, which has been invaluable. So what we decided to do, especially in light of the outage that we had a few weeks ago, is to essentially build a redundant ES-Chat infrastructure over at the backup center. So if we had another event like we had a few weeks ago, that we would still be able to operate the system. So the bulk of this money would be used for that purpose.
Okay. Mike, did you have something?
I was just going to ask, that just seems like a very sizable grant for a local foundation. I mean, I don't know, it's not a record probably, but it seems like a lot, $176,000, so.
Yeah, it is. And that's one of the reasons I really wanted to acknowledge Arlen, because again, he's been a great ambassador. He's really our project manager for ES-Chat, and he's, at least from, our side, is the one that really helped facilitate this grant. So we're really proud of him and appreciative of his efforts.
Okay. Are we ready to vote? All those in favor? That's unanimous. Michael, I was wondering if you could just tell us a little bit about the results of the emergency drill. Did you receive any feedback from Homeland Security? Mike,
Sorry,
did you?
I have a question after your thing.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Rich, I'm not really quite sure what you're asking.
The emergency response drill at the airport.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, that's what I wanted to make sure. Really, we were a participating partner in that. I think that would really best come from the airport. They were the planners of that exercise. Our role was really, we had a multifaceted role in that we had our RACES team performing the staging for that, which was the first, and I think they did rather well. Our EMS team came in and worked that day, and they played a lead role in the EMS component, and then the emergency management piece here in the Emergency Operations Center, where we activated our ESC and then used it as an opportunity to exercise based on information that was coming from the incident commander, who was a member of the airport crash fire rescue team. So, but but the actual exercise was really an airport exercise, and again, we were a partner. But Jeff Dunn, I think, also played a large role in trying to get volunteers to play victims. So we certainly had a hand in it, but much of the success really goes to them. It was their exercise, and we were just a partner.
Okay, Mike.
I just had a question about page 53. There seems to be a typo here, EMS Crew of the Year. And it says Joe, and there's this guy Lee in there. I didn't know if...
What could
I was kind of remiss. I should have really touched on the fact that we did have our second annual EMS Awards this year, and Joe, who's obviously a member of our team, and of course Lee is a member of our team. They were, this was really for an event at Groton. Many of our EMS partners work multiple locations, but this was for an event in Groton, where they saved an individual's life that that was brought to the firehouse.
Thank you, Lee.
Triple threat, Lee. Legislator, saving lives.
And Joe.
Yeah, and we try to use these awards as a way of uplifting our community-based organizations. Again, this was our second year doing the EMS Awards, and in October, we'll do something similar for the fire service. It will be the second year that we'll be recognizing the fire service. We try to do it in their month of recognition. And so May is historically the month that we show appreciation to EMS, and October is when we do it for the fire service. So we'll do something very similar for the fire service, and will be the second year that we're doing that, and that will be in October during Fire Safety Week.
Okay. Well, thank you, Michael. Anything else for Department of Emergency Response? If not, we'll move on to Department of Probation and Community Justice, and I see Daniel is with us. And it is...
No Carla today.
No Carla, okay. Yeah. Welcome, Dan.
Thank you. I'm actually, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Great. I'm in a hotel room in Oswego for our annual Council of Probation Administrators Conference. So it's been breaking up a little bit, but I've heard most of the conversation. From probation, it's been a pretty busy month, the culmination of multiple projects, including submission of our annual state aid package and plan. That will be submitted on Friday. We've completed our annual report. I just need to review that when I get back in the office, and then we'll be able to release that. We're also have recently reviewed our probation data dashboard, which is modeled largely after the examples provided by the Sheriff's Department and District Attorney's Office. We've reviewed that with County Administration. They provided us suggestions on a couple of tweaks to make it more understandable to the general public, and then we're excited to be releasing that. We'd like to, I've communicated with Bridget, and we're going to set up a time to present that at an upcoming CJATI meeting, and I'd also like to schedule to present that to the public safety community as well, so that you can review that and familiarize yourselves with it if you're interested.
Yes, do you think that'll be ready to go on the agenda for our July public safety meeting?
I actually have something else I'd like to put on the agenda for the July public safety meeting, so perhaps August or September, if that's possible.
That's fine. That's fine.
I appreciate that. Our GIV application obviously was approved by the state in conjunction with all the other GIV partners in the county, and completed submission of our county budget proposals. There's been a lot of major projects going on, and they all seem to be wrapping up quite nicely. So I'm excited to move those things forward.
Okay, and you have a resolution, budget adjustment, probation, authorization to accept the gun-involved violence elimination 2024-2025 grant from New York State Division of Criminal Justice Services, doc ID 12512. And why don't we get that on the floor so we can talk about it? Shauna moves. Mike seconds. Yeah, do you want to tell us a little bit about this, Daniel?
Sure. So it's $42,600, the same amount that we were allocated last year. Last year being our first year, not really knowing how that was going to impact our staffing, I feel like I did not do the best job as far as allocating the funds. Most of it I had allocated to electronic monitoring, which was appropriate, and then overtime, which we didn't wind up needing a lot of. So this year I've allocated 2% of salary for 4 different probation officers to be covered by the GIVE grant. We will far exceed 2 hours a week of work for each of those officers, given the cases that we're supervising. But it will at least benefit the county. Since it's not a grant that we get a check for, we have to submit for reimbursement for services provided to the state. So there's also some money in there for a community engagement project that I'm going to be working in partnership with Sergeant Meskel from IPD on. It's an art contest to create awareness for the youth in the community about gun violence prevention. So we spoke with our DCGS partners, and they thought that that was an appropriate expenditure. So that money will come out of the probation department's budget line.
Okay. I'm curious, do you have any estimate of how many hours or what is the true cost of the probation department's work in the GIVE program?
I could work that up. I know right now we have 14 individuals under GIVE supervision, where that's in addition to other people who are already on probation for gun-involved crime prior to GIVE, but we're not officially GIVE cases. So they're sprinkled amongst a couple of our greatest risk supervising officers, our senior probation officers. I know we're going out after hours with some regularity, including 2 officers getting called out last night at 9 o'clock at night. So
it seems like the work is qualitatively different as well, in that you're seeing your probation officers stepping into situations that might have more risk attached to them. Is that a fair statement?
I would say that's a fair statement. That's part of what I'd like to present to you next month. Just have a discussion about what actually GIVE is entailing for us that's different from how we've operated in the past. So,
yeah, I think the committee would benefit from having that conversation, Dan. So yes, please come talk to us.
I'll have that finalized and ready for next month.
Okay. All right, any questions or comments for our Director of Probation, Community Justice? Okay. Dan, anything else?
Nope, I think that will sum it up for today. I appreciate the time.
All right, enjoy your conference.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. All right. Next up, I believe we have our assigned counsel.
Good afternoon, Rich. How are you?
Lance, welcome. I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm good. Not a lot. I'll try to be quick because of the time everyone spent. Just to highlight our numbers we gave you, you've got 5 months of our data, so it starts to give a little more information. You still have to be careful, I think, in trying to read too much into pieces of data, until we get further into the year. The good thing is our numbers are down a bit for felonies. Last year, 2023, for the first 5 months, we had about 133 felonies. This year, we're at 107. That kind of tracks the FBI, I know, reported their first quarter nationwide violent crime was way down. So, hopefully it's something reflective of that trend. We'll get deeper into the year and we'll see if that's an aberration, but hopefully hopefully that'll continue through the year. Our misdemeanors are up, misdemeanors and violations are up, on the other hand, slightly. It's about 20 at this point, so we'll look at that and see. I don't think, see what that means. Our family court cases are also down a bit this year over last year. We're hoping that continues. That'd be nice to see that peak. Hopefully we're past the peak in our family court cases in terms of our case activity there. So that's kind of the update on our numbers. Nothing unusual in terms of the courts, how they're spread out. That's kind of the historical pattern we see there in terms of who our busiest courts are. And that's just kind of continuing on track in terms of that. Other than not a lot to report. We did get a letter from, or the county got a letter from DCJS indicating that our aid to defense money may be finally showing up here. Background in this is the state's always given aid to prosecution for years. I'm guessing Matt gets a piece of that. In last year's budget, not this year's budget, but the budget finalized in June of 2024, they decided to give some money aid to defense to break up to kind of balance that out. So we're now getting notice here in about a year later that yeah, we're actually going to distribute that money. So that'll be coming in. So it's some additional state aid that'll help balance out some of our costs here going down the road. And admin and I are looking at how best to spend that. There are some limitations on that, of course, but a lot of flexibility too.
Okay. I assume no major legislative news, given what you were telling us last year. This year's quieter?
No. Yeah, just a comment. I think Matt noted, nothing happened to raise the age, which I think was a legitimate comment. I think what's happened the past couple of years, other issues have taken all the oxygen out. They keep arguing about the same things. And effectively, it's block consideration of some of these other things. When we're up there talking to people, they're like, no, we're focused on these things. We don't have time to hear you on that, type of thing. So hopefully that'll still come.
Yeah.
Okay. But no, nothing major.
All right. Any questions or comments for our Director of Assigned Counsel? All right. Seeing none? Okay. Well, Lance, thank you. And we have come to the end of our agenda. Is there any other business to come before the Public Safety Committee? All right. Seeing none, thank you, everybody, for coming, and we'll see everybody in a month.